Okay, so we are building up to the SAC. You guys will be completing this in probably a week or so. Don't stress out. Like I said, it's all individual work. It's pretty, let's say, cruisy in terms of like if you're comparing it to other SACs that you will do, have done. So the personalized physical activity plan. What we're going to look at is why we're doing it, the different ways that you can assess physical activity, and basically what's involved in setting it up. So let's get into it. So the personal activity plan, the basic goal, the reason why we do it is to maximize movement opportunities. We're trying to maximize how much incidental activity you're doing. So incidental activity is it's things that just happen as a matter of course in your daily activities. So for example, you're not at school at the moment, but incidental activities, using school as an example, would be walking from H block to the gym. Okay, it's that walking between classes during the period break. It might be, walking from the hard courts down to your lockers at the end of lunch. It's the stuff that happens as a result of, life. Then there's things like household chores, doing the vacuuming, doing the washing, carrying the loads of washing from upstairs down to the washing machine, doing the vacuuming, going outside, maybe mowing the lawns, raking leaves, digging holes, whatever it could be. You've got your occupational physical activity, so that's things like, you would have read about it at the start of the chapter. PE teachers are a good example. They're physically active during the day for their job, right? Playing games with you guys. Other examples might be, your carpenters and your bricklayers and all those sort of people. It requires lots of lifting of heavy objects and moving of objects all the time. So there's examples of occupational physical activity. I'm trying to lock my chair. There we go. Active transport, moving to and from school. How do you get to school? Do you live 5 minutes away from school? If you do, are you getting driven each morning? You could probably get on your bike and ride. I used to live a 5-minute drive from work, and I changed my morning plans. I left a little bit earlier for work, and I was riding to work for, it was about 3 years, and I noticed the difference. It was hot days, rainy days, cold days. It was interesting, but it helped. It helped. They're the ways that you can, incorporate as much movement into your life as possible. So what do you have to do? You need to conduct a needs analysis. Okay, so the basis behind the needs analysis is, what do you want to achieve out of the plan, and what does the plan need to achieve in order to be effective? What does it need to do? What does it need to have? So we're going to look at those in a little bit more detail over the next few pages. If you're looking for information regarding all this, this is taken, straight from your textbook, and I just need to find it. I've lost it. It starts on page 175. So the basic needs analysis. This is just it's a summary of a summary on page 175, 176. But you need to set your goals. What do you want to get out of the program? Why are you doing it? Is it for, is it like down at established priorities? Is it personal gains? Is it training for sport? What's the reason? Why are you doing it? Do you want to improve your levels? Obviously you do, that's why you're doing it. But, Yeah, what do you want to get out of it? What are your current levels of physical activity like? Should be noted, I'm going to refer to physical activity just because I'm lazy and can't be bothered typing physical activity all the time as PA. Okay, so anytime you see PA, we're referring to physical activity. So what do your current levels look like? Do you do anything? You know, are you a gamer that sits on the couch all day, every day? Aside from when you're at school, you go home and you sit in front of the computer or whatever it might be and just do nothing. Okay, or are you that sort of person that is constantly moving? Are you going for runs, going for bike rides, horse riding, all that sort of stuff? Okay, how active are you currently? Okay, so you need to assess your current levels, and you can do that through using a pedometer. You can use it, fitness trackers nowadays. Surveys will give you a good indication of how active you are, and we'll have a look at some of those a little bit later on. You can keep diaries of what you have done, okay, and that's what you're going to be doing in a couple of weeks in the SAC. So what are the priorities? Why are you doing the program? Is it for personal gains? If it is, then you might look at implementing some of the National Physical Activity Guidelines. Is it training for sport? If you're training for sport and it's a particular position that you play, then there might be different training methods, fitness components that are applicable, in which case you would talk to your coach or whoever's doing the physical training of it. Then you move on to your fitness testing. Okay, it's based on why you're doing it. Okay, it's based on your priorities, so it's going to determine which fitness components are important. If you're just looking to improve your base level, if you're doing it for recreational purposes, then it's probably not such a big deal, but fitness testing would more be relevant to the sporting situations. The next one is really important. Tailor it to your interests. It's got to be interesting. If you're not interested in running kilometers by yourself, what's the likelihood that the program's going to be a success? Are you going to achieve it? Probably not, because you might go, yeah, I'm going to go for a run. You'll do one session and you just go, I hated it, and then you won't do it again. It needs to motivate you. If you like bike riding, why would you do swimming? Okay, yes, swimming is really good, but if you're not interested in swimming and you like bike riding, get on a bike and do something go for a ride at some of the many mountain bike courses. Go for a ride around your local area, whatever it's going to be, but as long as it's interesting, then it's a big chunk of the program being a success right there if it's interesting. The availability of time and resources is another one. Okay, it's got to be realistic. If you don't have a lot of time, then you can't make these long training sessions or these long activity sessions, because it's not going to be achievable. You wouldn't be, let's say you're a student, you're not going to have these activity plans that incorporate activity at, let's say you've structured it to the hour. You're going to be in class at 11 o'clock. There's no point in saying, well, I'm going to go for a run at 11 o'clock. It might be possible now, but not when you're at school. The appropriate training methods. What training methods have you chosen? Okay, do you have access to them? Okay, are they appropriate? There's no point in saying, well, I'm going to go to the gym, but I don't have a gym membership and the nearest gym to me is 40 minutes away. That's not going to work. You could make a gym at home using, everyday household objects, paint cans, milk containers filled with water, whatever it'll be. You can make them. I mean, there are people who have. There was a video on YouTube a little while ago, a bloke had constructed a home gym out of just trees, and it was impressive. It worked, but the training methods, they need to be appropriate, and you need to have access to it. And finally, the physical state is also important. Are you injured? Okay, don't start anything if you're injured. You need to give your body time to heal. We would have looked at this. No, actually, we did look at it. It was covered in the first term. You need to give your body time to recover from injuries, because it's just going to make it worse, and it'll lead to overuse injuries, and it's not good. Career-ending stuff, basically. Are the activities going to be appropriate for your age? Let's say you're a 60, 70-year-old adult. Is it realistic to think that you're going to go out and start running 5Ks or lifting, weights? The activities need to be appropriate. Later on in the chapters, we'll look at, the activities that are undertaken by different age groups, and walking is probably one of the more common activities undertaken by the older age groups. Have you completed a physical activity readiness questionnaire? Prior to undertaking any sort of activities, this is really important, because it basically assesses whether or not you should be undertaking these activities. This is something we didn't get to look at, but it's a questionnaire that basically goes through a whole heap of different conditions. And I'll show you one a little bit later on. So, moving on, what do you have to do? Okay, before you do anything relating to your physical activity, you need to do an evaluation. Okay, it's the same as the pre-activity screening or the physical activity readiness questionnaire. Okay, and it has multiple steps, which we're going to look at. So, you need to set your goals. What do you want to achieve? Like we said before, is it to do with just improving your everyday physical activity? Is it for sport? What are the reasons? Okay, but those goals, they need to be smarter. Okay, you've heard the SMARTER acronym before, and there are different sort of words included in the acronym. This is the one that's straight out of the textbook, which is found on page 178. Okay, so straight out of the textbook, they need to be specific. Okay, don't set these vague sort of goals that don't make any sense. Okay, I want to improve my fitness. Okay, yeah, it's good. You want to improve your fitness, but it needs to be specific. I want to improve my fitness levels, from this to this. Okay, they need to be measurable. The goals need to be measurable. So how are you going to measure that you've improved your fitness levels? Okay, that could be through tests. The beep test is a good example. There are a range of fitness tests that you can do. Okay, needs to be acceptable, needs to be realistic. Okay, we've been through a lot of this stuff already. Needs to be time bound. So, by the end of this year, I want to be able to run 5 kilometers. Just an example. Okay, so at the end of this year is your time bound goal. They need to be exciting. And finally, how are you going to record it? Are you going to keep a diary, or what's the method going to be? So, what do your current levels actually look like? Gmail. Are you a Norm? So Norm was a bloke back in the 1980s when I grew up. So he's old, but he was a massive, let's say, success in terms of the federal government's advertising for physical activity. So much so that it actually became a worldwide thing, this whole Life Be In It. So we can look at some of those videos a little bit later on as well, when we talk about promotion of physical activity. So are you a Norm? Are you physically active? Like I said, are you one of those persons that, you know, will go out every day and do something? Okay, hold on, and I'm back. Yeah, are you physically active? So you need to assess your current levels of physical activity. So it's done through, you know, surveys. The Children's Leisure Activities Study Survey, which is on page 204 if you want some more information, which we'll also look at in a little bit more detail later on, is basically, it's a questionnaire that's given to parents and children under the age of 10, and it looks at their physical activity throughout a school term. You can do it through pedometers, you can do it through fitness trackers, there's all those different ways that you can assess your fitness levels, okay, which we will look at in a little bit more detail in a bit. What's your priority? Again, why are you doing it? Okay, what do you want to get out of it? Is it for fitness? Is it sport related? Your priorities are going to determine how hard and how much work is going to be required. Is it going to be something that's going to just be, you know, the average sort of time that it takes to see any sort of physical benefits from training is about 6 weeks minimum. Okay, so, you know, is it going to be something that's, let's say, 6 weeks down the track, or is it going to be something that's many years down the track? You know, do you want to be able to run 5 kilometers, or do you want to be able to run a marathon? Fitness testing. So these are going to be based on the priorities that you've identified. Okay, what do you want to get out of the program? Okay, you hold on a sec. Back again. And finally, make sure that you're using relevant standardized tests. Okay, so if you're not sure what a standardized test is, a standardized test is basically a test that is administered in the same way, using the same procedure, regardless of who or where it's done. All right, so the beep test, for example, is a standardized test because it doesn't matter whether we run it at our school or whether we run it at, you know, a gymnasium or whatever it might be. The beep test, if you say, okay, we're going to run the beep test, everyone knows what you're talking about. Everyone generally knows, you know, how it's meant to be administered. Okay, so that's what a standardized test is, because then you have something that you can compare your results to. So the baseline, it's your initial data. Okay, and that's what you're going to get from your fitness test. Okay, then you're going to monitor your progress through using diaries, using heart rate data, okay, your steps that you're taking, blood pressure, sleep hours. There's more on page 178, but all of those are going to be good indicators of how you're progressing through your program, okay? As you improve your aerobic fitness, okay, you would expect to see a decrease in like your resting heart rate because, and we would have covered this in term 2, but we're not looking at the cardiovascular system this term. You would expect to see a decrease in the resting heart rate because the cardiovascular system has become more efficient at delivering blood, okay, around the body. So they're all some indicators of, you know, how you're progressing through your training program. So the next one, we've already talked about it. It's going to be easier to stick to something that is interesting for you, okay? You know, running by yourself as opposed to running with someone, that's always going to be more interesting because you've got someone to motivate you, you've got someone to push you along, you know, if you're that sort of competitive person, okay? But don't go and do a running program if you're not interested in running at all, even if you have a person to motivate you, okay? Do something that's going to be interesting to you. That's all that is. Again, the availability of time, you've got to create something that takes into account all of your commitments, okay? School, work, study, all those sorts of things, Don't make plans to use gymnasiums and all that sort of stuff if you don't have access to them. Okay, it's got to be realistic. Like I said, you go and make something. Use the facilities and the equipment that you're going to have access to. If you live, like I do, 35 minutes from, the nearest sort of town with those sort of facilities, it's probably not going to be feasible to say, okay, well, I've got an hour in this, between 4 and 5 o'clock where I can do some exercise. I'm going to drive to the gym and I'm going to do a session there. Okay, my hour of availability that I have is going to be taken up by just driving. Okay, so it would be more realistic of me to say, okay, well, I've got an hour. I'll spend 20 minutes of that, maybe 30 minutes of it going for a run, or I'll go for a bike ride, or I'll go out, into my little shed and I'll lift some weights. I have a little shed, but I don't have little weights. Okay, I don't have big weights either. I don't have any weights. I don't use them. So use the facilities, the equipment that you're going to have access to. Okay, appropriate training methods. What are you doing? Are you doing weights? Are you doing some sort of continuous activity? So continuous, basically having no, this is getting into year 12 stuff. It's looking at skill acquisition, but continuous is like it's no distinct beginning or end. So it just keeps going. So is it going to be swimming? Is it going to be running? Is it going to be, and I'm putting my fingers out of the thing, swimming, running, cycling, that sort of stuff. Interval. Are you going to work for a period and then have a rest? Okay, what sort of training method are you going to do? And again, do you have access to what you're trying to achieve there? Do you have access to the weights? Do you have somewhere that you can run? Okay, most people should have somewhere that they can run or ride or whatever. Swimming might be a little bit difficult, but again, do you have the access? So the physical state, all right, looking at this little picture here. Where are you currently? Are you, this person down here, or are you, somewhere up here? Where are you? Okay. Are the activities going to be appropriate for your current level? So this person here is not going to be going, well, I'm going to go for a 5K run. Okay. Straight off the bat, just going to go for a 5K run. This person here might be able to achieve 5K, and I'm going to try and write 5K with my mouse. I should be doing this on my tablet, but I'm not. But this guy here, he's definitely not going to be doing that. Okay, 5K is just not going to happen. Is 5K going to be relevant to this person here? Someone who's already physically active? Probably not. You probably want to do something that's a little bit more than that. Okay, have you completed your physical activity readiness questionnaire? So exercise your potential. You're going to use FIT. Okay, so any training program that you design, it needs to keep in mind these principles of the training program. Okay, so the frequency, you need to be doing somewhere at least 3 sessions a week, at least, minimum. The intensity, what sort of intensity is it? Okay, are you working at an aerobic level? Are you working at an anaerobic level? How hard are you working? How long? Okay, how long are you doing it for? That's the time. And then the type. What sort of activity is it? Is it, and that's going back to, what is it, page, right to the start, is it a page 165? Okay, 165, 164, leisure, household, occupational, that sort of stuff. So, creating and implementing your plan. Here is an example of a student, Bailey. Okay, he's broken it down into a few sections. So he's got his before school, he's got his school hours, and he's got his after school. Looking at the information here in the table, and this question is on, what page is it on? No, that's not it. There he is there. So looking at page 177, there's a couple of questions there, but have a look at this information, okay? And then you need to think about the National Physical Activity Guidelines for this age group. So Bailey is a 16-year-old student, so he's about your age. Kids of your age, you need to be doing at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity activity every day. Okay, so keep that in mind. Have a look at the information that's presented in the table there, and then see how you go answering these questions. And I'll have to move my head out of the way. But did Bailey meet the physical activity guidelines for a 16-year-old? And you need to justify your answer. Okay, and then you need to create a blank table using the same format, and you need to do a diary for yourself. Okay, this is just a little practice one. Okay, it doesn't need to be super detailed, but it's just a little practice for what you guys are going to be doing in the next few weeks. Let's pause the video there and have a go at those questions. Okay, so how do you evaluate the plan? So there's 5 steps. You've set your goals, you've established your baseline, you've identified your opportunities to be active, and you've monitored your progress. Now you need to compare your results to the baseline data to see if there's been any improvements. So how are you going to do that? Okay, this is why we do a pre-test and a post-test. Okay, so we'll do, for example, before you start a training plan, okay, you would do all your fitness tests, and do your battery of tests, you get your results for each. So let's say you're trying to improve your cardiovascular endurance as one. You would do a beep test most logically, or any one of the aerobic endurance tests. Okay, but we'll just go with the beep test. Let's say you got level 5-1 as a pre-test score. All right, so let's put 5, whoa, that's a terrible 5.1 as a pre-test. With the post-test, once you've done your 6 weeks, I think I said 6 weeks for your training program, let's say you've been going for a run pretty much every day. You scored level 7, let's make it level 7.6. Okay, so straight away you can draw comparisons between your post-test and your pre-test. Okay, you've already improved a couple of levels. So basically you need to draw comparisons between the information that you have at the start and the information that you have at the end, and then you can say, yes, I have improved, or no, I haven't. Okay, last thing I want you to do is the end of chapter review questions, which are on page 181, and here they are here. Okay, so that is pretty much all of the questions. Make sure you complete those, and we'll work out a way that you guys can actually know what, just submit them via the Teams app. I will set something up that you guys can respond to in Teams. Don't forget about that. If you've got any questions, hit me up on Teams. We've got live classes every Monday at 9 o'clock. Yeah, thanks for watching.